Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the MultiDimensional MD. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I wanted to talk to my good friend and colleague, Maria Alfaro, about trauma release work and some updates on it, because it's still been a very intense time for people. Given the recent school shooting in Texas, I've had some questions about it. Just to let you know, also, Corinne Casey and I also did a podcast on creating calm, parenting with mind, body, spirit. We talked about processing trauma and tragedy, especially with families and kids. And so you can check that out on any of the podcasting platforms. I'll drop the link below in the comments. But I wanted to continue to talk about tension and trauma release exercises. Maria is the senior TRE and Neurogenic Yoga certification trainer. She has a background in yoga, Chinese martial arts, Esalen massage, and she's trained with Dr. Berselli, TRE's founder, since 2004, teaching his work ever since. So over the past couple decades, she's taught TRE to thousands of people in the US, in Europe, in Canada, Asia, and the Middle East. And she's assisted Dr. Berselli in numerous trainings in the US, South Africa, Brazil, Japan, and led hundreds of workshops, over 100 certification trainings worldwide. She is one of the two creators of Neurogenic Yoga, the sister method of TRE. So thanks so much for being here, Maria.
Oh, Dr. Jamko, so glad to be here and so nice to see you. It's been a while.
I know not everyone is familiar with TRE, or tension and trauma release exercises. So could you review what that is for people?
Sure. So this is a method that was designed in war zones by Dr. David Berselli. And David is a bioenergetic therapist, which is a form of psychotherapy that is very somatic. And also he has a PhD in clinical social work on top of other things that he does. So he spent a couple of decades working with traumatized populations in the Middle East and in Africa, basically in war zones. And in his journey to try to help these people, because obviously being a psychotherapist in a war zone is pretty difficult to reach people. It's really hard to do one-on-one work. So he was trying to find ways, first of all, to help his own self, because living in those areas was affecting his own mental health, but also to be able to help groups of people instead of individuals. And I think at this point, the TRE has reached probably about 7 million people in 78 countries. So although we are still below the radar of the mainstream, we're getting more momentum and more recognition. So anyway, in his journey to create this method, he noticed a couple of very important things in how people respond to traumatic situations. And one was that adults, let's say in a bombing, adults will tend to contract regardless of their background or, political or religious belief or race. They will all do that. Nobody will go like this in a bombing. So that's one thing, this. And then the little kids in this situation tends to shake and tremor. So he put the two things together a couple of decades ago, and he created a theory that now seems to be sustained by, the feedback of millions of people. And there is some research to back it too at this point. But anyway, the theory went, if there is a mechanism that makes us contract to protect ourselves, which appears to be genetically encoded in the organism, meaning we do it involuntarily, there should be also another mechanism that makes us release the contraction once we feel safe again. Mm-hmm. But since shaking and tremoring is not well accepted in society because it's associated with, disease, weirdness, weakness, guilt, nervousness. So we don't want to look like that. And so we tend to suppress it. Although it's a natural response, we tend to suppress it because we don't want to look weird, in a few words. So when he created this theory, he also then moved on experimented with this concept, and he created a simple set of exercises which are designed to mildly fatigue or stretch the bigger muscles in the legs. And that is the way that we jumpstart this mechanism again, this natural shaking mechanism, which is supposed to release the contraction and the tension that we are holding in the body for a reason or another. It's very important that participants understand how this work, because otherwise the mind is a big block to it, because the mind tend to think, no, I don't want to do these strange things. But if the mind understand, then it's possible to make it happen again. So basically, this was designed in war zones, so for the high stress and trauma of being in those situations. But when he came back to the States, because he's from Phoenix, Arizona, when he came back to the state, he realized that really stress and trauma are in a continuum that goes from the mild stress of being late for a dentist appointment to the severe trauma of being in a bombing or in an accident or in a tsunami or in a shooting or just, the things. So the difference is really the degree, the duration, the repetition, how old the person was when something happened. So there are many factors that determine the way that we process what happened. But it's not just the severe events in our life, but also the stress of everyday life. I mean, right now, I don't need to explain to anybody what is to be stressed, right? Because we are under constant stressors. But even the small things, like let's say you have a job that you love that requires you to sit a lot in a chair, that is stressful for your body, even if you love what you're doing. So the tension can be created for many different reasons, and that tension creates corollary problems in the body. And the more stress we have, and you are a doctor, so you know that doctors say stress is the number one killer. The more stress we have, the less well our body functions, the more our immune system is taxed, and so on. So basically, through this simple exercises, we activate this mechanism, which is for most people report it to be pleasant or at least neutral. Can manifest in many different ways and can be actual shaking and swaying. It can be bouncing. It can be a vibration that is more internal, like a buzzing or an electrical current. It can be a sensation of heat. So it can be many different things. But people report that all of the symptoms that accompany stress and even post-traumatic stress disorder, they seem to be alleviated or even eliminated by doing this work with some regularity. And after a while, the people do it, they don't even need to do the preparatory exercises, because it becomes more, it's like reinstalling a program that has been dormant in our body, and then the body is more willing to do it without a lot of preparation. So it can become something, that people can do 10 minutes here and there, and it's not a big.
That's what I'll do. I'll do it pretty regularly. And then since I'm a cranial osteopath, what's neat is like I can feel my insides like reworking itself. Like I can feel like different parts of the nervous system, the vagus nerve releasing, and so it's really neat to be able to feel all that. But the I feel like the culture is starting to become more trauma informed. There's a lot more media now on talking about trauma, on normalizing, being able to address these very difficult things, and so that we can process it and move forward.
Oh, definitely. There is way more acceptance now than there was even just a few years ago. And a lot of people that get trained these days are actually healthcare professionals.
That's
I mean,
great.
anybody can learn to teach this work. This is the beauty of it. When Dr. Berselli started teaching it, he was teaching it to everybody. And by the way, in Africa, in Sudan, this was adopted as a national recovery program back in the
Wow.
80s. So that the country were really sprout out
That was
from
already in the 80s.
in the 80s. I think it was either the 80s or the very early 90s. But it was, yeah, a lot of people tried then, and as you know, Sudan is a very traumatized country to this day. So there are ongoing wars. And so, yeah, it was hands-on. I mean, it was an hands-on. So this work wasn't born, in labs. It was something that was really hands-on and experimented with many million people to this day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And things have changed in the last couple years since the pandemic with teaching TRE, because usually, I mean, well, you tell me, before it was a lot taught in person, but now there's so many virtual options that were kind of born through the pandemic.
Oh, totally. Actually, the work when the pandemic hit, we had to come together
Mhm.
and find ways to still spread the work because the work was needed more than ever. And so
Right.
what we did, we Asha was part of a pilot project in mid 2020 to start
Uh-huh.
doing trainings completely online. So you did my training, so it
Uh-huh.
was all the training part, the workshops were in person, and then the supervision to learn how to teach it to others was virtual. But now everything is virtual. And initially, I was resistant to the idea because I figured
Uh-huh.
that the social engagement,
Uh-huh.
the presence in person was important, but I tell you, Arlene, it's phenomenal how well it works online, actually. And people even report feeling the presence of the group online. So now everything is done online, and we trained many people since then, and it's going really well. And I also started a free class that I open to people who already tried the work because I don't really explain what it's about. We just do
Uh-huh.
the work, and I've been doing it for over 2 years now with great success also online. And there are like for between 30 to 50 people every time, and they come from all over the world. It's very rewarding. So anybody listening, if you attend a workshop, I offer these 2 hours introductory workshops all the time. They
Uh-huh.
can be found on my website. uh, People can do them from the safety and comfort of their home. And anybody who attend, because it's important again that the mind understand what it's about. So these workshops are 2 hours, so the people have a full grip of what's going on with this work, and then they can attend until I will stop teaching them. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon that I
Oh,
stop. They
that's
can
great.
attend the free class every week, and that is to support them
Mhm.
to keep doing it, because you will know too that people tend to drop off practice. I mean, people know the meditation is good, exercise is good, but do we do it? Not so much. So through this class, I help to support the public to actually stick to it, because although it's pretty effective, you have to do it in
Yeah.
order to
I I put your website there so people can find that
uh,
information. And, I mean, the virtual classes that I started teaching through the pandemic, it was just really neat to see people to come from all different countries, and so it became more accessible for even from a distant, and part of it, this is the ongoing message I found, like, through the pandemic, through just having to connect from a distant to people. It's just that we're having to have more of that spirit connection and not rely completely on the physical in-person connection. So it's stretching us and it's helping us grow in a way. And what you said about just making sure that you understand that this shaking process is this healing process, and just talking about that with people and with families, I find is so helpful because what happens is they start to embrace it. So if they ever feel shaky or trembly, they no longer try to stop it. So with just the understanding alone, there's so many moments where people will feel shaky in their lives, whether just they're very excited about something or they're scared about something or they're going through the grieving process. And to give yourself the gift of allowing your body to go through this healing process, which it knows how to do on its own. And if you're already shaking, you have access to it. The tension and trauma release exercises are like, if we don't have access, and it helps us to regain access to this relaxation, rebalancing response. But yeah, the understanding of it is so helpful.
Oh, totally, because the body knows how to do it. Is that
Mhm.
the mind is on the way and try to stop it. So actually, many people, when they do workshops or train, they say, "Oh, I recognize this as was happening. After I give birth, for example, it's a very common thing for
Yes.
women to shake." Did you experience it?
After all 4, and I asked the nurses and the physicians, I was like, "What's happening to me?" And my first one, I had received some medication, so I figured, I was like, "This must be the medication." And the nurses and the physician, they just kind of like, they didn't really know, but they just said, "Oh, yeah, that happens," but they had no explanation for it. So it wasn't until I took your training that I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I'm glad that I let myself.
Yeah,
So
many people feel validated in their, in the natural wisdom of their body, and they feel that, again, when they find themselves in a situation, I hear this all the time too. Like I was at the stressful meeting, and my legs were under the table, so people could not see them, and how people were, being nasty to each other. I was just shaking, and sort of that's what the animals do. If you think about it, they don't sit about around thinking about what happened to them, but if something happened, they shake it off. Or if there is a thunderstorm or fireworks or whatever stress them out, they just shake it off. And that's why they don't have to carry it, which is what we do, unless we get
yeah,
rid of it.
I used to feel shaky like before doing some public speaking, and I used to just think I was cold. I was like, oh, the room must be really cold. But it would only happen like right before. But now I realize it. And yeah, it's great because then you embrace, instead of thinking of it as a sign of weakness or something's wrong with you, you start to embrace this healing mechanism that your body goes to automatically if you let it, if your mind lets it.
And if people do it regularly, the results are pretty profound. Some people start feeling, in the matter of a couple of sessions, the more stressed they are, the more they can feel the effects readily, like sleeping better, having better digestion, being less anxious, less triggered, not responding in a dysregulated manner to whatever life throws at them. And that improves interpersonal relationship as well, because stress is a big tax on our connections with others. So it's a connection with ourselves.
Mhm.
And for people that have been practicing for a while, it appears also to have other layers of
Yes.
we go beyond the because when we are under stress, we are really in a survival mode. And so we cannot, anything that we do will not come out that well. But once we go beyond the state and we start to feel more connected with ourselves, a lot of different layers of our being tend to open up. So many people report having spiritual experiences and feeling not only more
Oh, that's
connected with themselves and their loved ones, but also with something greater than themselves. Again, it doesn't have to be a religious awakening, but it's something that opened their.
well, I mean, I see that like with any healing that occurs for a person, it's really that balancing of body, mind, spirit. So yeah, TRE is a way to help do that. And the great thing is that when people don't feel like talking, they can go straight to the body, and the body has access.
Oh, and that's another good point about this work, is that unlikely with psychotherapy, and this is not either or with
Right.
psychotherapy.
Mhm.
Actually goes very well with
Mhm.
psychotherapy, because
Yes.
a lot of psychotherapists that get trained in this work, because they know that the mind processing thing cerebrally, I mean, through the cortex, has limitations. Of course it's great, but let's say somebody has a very severe trauma, talking about it as the start, is not necessarily the best thing, because they're going to get re-traumatized just by telling the story.
Mhm.
Once they get rid of the stress and fear, and they feel more like literally safe, then the story can have an amazing integrative value. So the beauty of this work is that we don't need to know the story, also because we cannot pick and choose what to release. Some people might say, oh, I want to release my car accident that happened 2 years ago, but the body can choose to first release the time your dog
Which is
was.
great. Their body will do it in the most efficient way possible, so you don't even have to organize it for it. It will
And
do
so
it
it's
for
it's a very physical, and that's very refreshing, because especially if people went through a lot, they don't want necessarily
you.
to
And I love to work with the therapist, even if they don't teach TRE. What happens is they find that if someone takes a TRE class or learns how to do it, that the therapy, the psychotherapy starts to become more efficient and more valuable because then they're able to speak. So whereas before they couldn't speak of it, then once they start to do the TRE, things start to become more balanced. And what was too intense before starts to be able to come out through the voice as well.
And that's valid for body work as well.
Mhm.
Many people tell me, both as client and as massage therapist, they tell me that as the body becomes less tense, the massage is received in a different way and it tends to go deeper. So that's what clients tell me, that they feel that the massage is having a deeper effect on them. And the massage therapist tell me that clients who used to have a lot of tension through this work become more receptive. And it's easier to massage them. Is not as, you
So,
know.
I mean, this is the great thing. Anytime we're working with any modality that is healing, like for me, I love collaborating. Like if because it helps things, it helps everything work better. So if anyone is doing anything that is helpful for them, then it's great. It's not meant to be separate from any other discipline. It's like it's putting it all together and using what's helpful for you.
Which is the beauty of having interconnected practice. I wish there were
Mhm.
more doctors like you.
I mean, that's why I bring it up because sometimes I find in medicine and healthcare where we're in a service industry, where we're helping people that sometimes people start to get competitive or they have like turf wars. This is even in like my traditional medical training, the specialists always are arguing with each other. Where I always thought it a bit puzzling because I was like, aren't we supposed to be working together for the benefit of the patient? So in that sense, there's not really an argument. So if we work together, we can do more. If we fight, it's not helpful.
No, no, it's not. So yeah, most of the people that get trained are health practitioners of some kind, but actually everybody and anybody can be trained to teach this work. Those trainings are for everybody, and we need more people
Yes.
that,
And you
that
have an upcoming training, and Maria is one of the best teacher trainers out there. She trained me. She came over and spoke to the Osteopathic Cranial Academy, which is how I met her. And she taught this huge group of physicians a class. And then I went off and decided, I'm a cranial osteopath and integrative physician. I treat a lot of people. I do hands-on treatment, but I was so intrigued by TRE and taking Maria's teacher training class because I I hoped to give people a way to treat themselves. So instead of always coming to me and I treat them, to really empower them with a way that they could help themselves. And then it's the gift that keeps on giving. So I did Maria's teacher training, and then I'll do TRE classes occasionally. And Brooke Kinder also teaches from my office as well. She's another TRE practitioner. And so, but Maria, can you tell us about your upcoming training, which is
Sure, the trainings, as we were saying initially earlier, they are all online. So basically, they consist on 3 modules of 2 days. They are weekends spread out through several months, and then there are some sessions that people have to do online, both personally to develop their own practice, and also first to teach individuals, and then to teach small groups. So the whole thing takes about 8-9 months or less if people are motivated. And I have one coming up, a module one coming up at the end of this month. It's on the 25th and 26th of June. That's the
Mhm.
module one. And module one is actually also open to the public, so people can take it as an immersion in the work, and they don't need to continue. So yeah, the information is on my
Oh, that's great.
website.
So
And
if people wanted just to do like a more intensive training, but for more personal reasons and not necessarily wanting to be a practitioner, they could do module one.
yes, and if they just want to try it out, they can do one of the many workshops of 2 hours that I offer. And everything is online, so they can participate from all over the world. And people do. I mean, I
Mhm,
have people coming from Europe, Africa,
mhm,
Middle East, everywhere, and Canada, and
uh-huh.
all the United States. So it's in this way, the internet has really been, I mean, in a way, the pandemic as a silver lining, because before people were only, they have to travel, they have to spend
Right.
money to
Yes.
be somewhere,
Yes.
you know, and
But
then
yeah,
right
you
now,
save a lot on that. Uh-huh.
yeah, it's
And then,
really.
and this is for the TRE, and you also teach neurogenic yoga.
Yes, neurogenic yoga basically is theory for people that like and love practicing yoga. I've been doing less of that with the pandemic because I don't love teaching yoga online. My
Mm,
colleague, which with whom I co-created the neurogenic yoga method, she's the one who does the training. So I have been letting her do it. Also
mhm,
because in a way, I don't know how to say this. Neurogenic yoga is only for yogis. While with
mhm.
TRE, I feel that I can reach anybody and everybody. So, although
Yeah.
I love yoga as a personal practice, I feel that I have a bigger impact on the world by teaching TRE
Uh-huh.
because anybody can learn to teach it and anybody can learn to do it. While neurogenic yoga, you have to be at least interested or tolerant of the yoga practice. And so that's not for everybody. Theoretically, it's for everybody, but it's
Sure.
only for the
Sure.
people that are interested in it.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, I have all your information here, trecalifornia.com, her handle at trecalifornia on any of the social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, and your email, Maria at trecalifornia.com. And this is such an amazing training. I've had multiple students or participants from my classes actually go off and seek further training, which is really remarkable because to have the one experience and realize how valuable it is. And that's how it was for me too. I had the one experience and I was like, this is so valuable. And I want this to be available for more people. I would love there to be more trainers and more practitioners so that we can really help people through these very intense times. People are going through things on the personal level, on the community level, on the global level, and it seems like we always have more news. It's never ending, but this in a way we are growing together and we are processing things together, and so tension and trauma release exercises can really help with that. It's something that you do, so you will be walked through a certain set of physical exercises, but you get to do it. And it doesn't require you to believe anything, which is amazing. And yeah, so people from all different backgrounds, if you do these sets of exercises, you will be able to access this shaking off, relaxation, rebalancing response, which is so healing on many levels, what we were talking about, body, mind, and spirit. So thank you, Maria, for hopping on here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being such a great advocate for this work, because it's true, you send me lots of people, and a lot of people told me, oh, Arlene told me about this.
Oh, great. I'm so glad that it's sinking in. And I'm telling my colleagues too, because I find, what's interesting is that it's the more people know about the body, sometimes the more difficult it is for them to understand because this is something new. But we can all learn new things, and the kids are learning new things all the time. And so to like step into that curiosity and that intrigue of like, wow, there's a healing mechanism in the body that I wasn't familiar with, but it's always been there. And all we have to it's right here. Like it's you. You don't have to go anywhere to access this. It's always with you.
Yeah, we just have to tap into it. But
Mhm.
so thank you very much for spreading the word, also in behalf of the whole organization.
Absolutely. So, thank you all for being here. Please like and subscribe wherever that button is. And if you have any questions about TRE or about anything in particular, leave me a comment. You can find me on my website, allworldshealth.com, and on my Instagram, All Worlds Health, Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics, TikTok, The Multidimensional MD. And I would love to hear from you as always. Lots of love to all of you. I'll be here next week, a Wednesday, 11 a.m. EST.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.